When I tell you that life can change in one single moment, I mean it from the deepest part of my heart. Sometimes it is not loud. Sometimes it doesn't even look dramatic to the outside world. It happens quietly, like a soft crack in a window that slowly spreads until everything breaks. Before I begin my story, I want to ask you something, my dear listener. Have you ever heard a story like this before? A story where a mother gives everything she has, only to be pushed aside when her child builds his own life. Tell me in the comments where you are listening from right now. Tell me if you have ever seen a parent forgotten in silence, and if you ever felt a moment where your heart broke, quietly, without shouting, just like mine did. Now, let me take you into my world. My name is not important, because this story could be any mother's story. I raised my son with my whole heart. From the moment I held him in my arms, I believed that my life finally had a purpose. I promised myself that I would protect him, teach him, and love him in ways I never received when I was young. I still remember the way his tiny fingers wrapped around mine. Back then, he needed me for everything: food, comfort, warmth, guidance. And as he grew, my love only grew stronger. Mothers don't measure love with years. We measure it with breaths, with hopes, with prayers whispered late at night. I was not a perfect mother, but I tried. God knows I tried. We did not have much, but I made sure he never felt poor. I skipped meals so he could eat his favorite food. I worked extra hours so he could have books for school. I taught him to walk, to talk, to believe in himself. And every night when I tucked him into bed, he would say, "Mom, I will always be with you." Those words, they lived in my heart like a warm blanket on a cold night. I did not know then that life had a different lesson waiting for me. He grew older, and like all children, he started needing me less. First, he stopped holding my hand. Then he stopped asking me about my day. And slowly, the boy who once ran to hug me every afternoon began walking past me with barely a smile. That is how distance begins. Not in big arguments, but in quiet moments where love goes unanswered. Still, I stayed patient. Mothers know how to wait. We are built for patience, or maybe for pain. I am not sure. Years passed, and he became a man I was proud of. Strong, educated, confident, everything I prayed for. And then he met her, his wife. She was beautiful, polite, soft-spoken. In the beginning, I welcomed her with open arms because I believe that when a son brings a new woman into his life, a mother does not lose a son, she gains a daughter. I prepared their home. I decorated their room with flowers. I blessed them with every prayer in my heart. But love can sometimes blind us, and warmth can sometimes be mistaken for acceptance. Slowly, I began to see a change. Not sudden, not loud. Like winter creeping into autumn leaf by leaf. She didn't like the way I arranged the kitchen. She didn't like the way I folded clothes. She didn't like the dishes I cooked, even when they were his favorites growing up. Every complaint came with a smile, gentle words, polite tone, but sharpness hidden underneath. And my son, he began to stand by her more than me. Which is natural, I reminded myself. This is his wife. A man must protect his home. But who protects a mother when her home slowly stops feeling like hers? I stayed quiet. I learned to stay out of their way. I learned when to speak and when silence was safer. Silence became my daily companion. Yet I never stopped loving them because mothers don't stop, even when it hurts. I did not know pain could feel calm. I did not know heartbreak could sit in the room with you quietly, like a guest who refuses to leave. But then came the day that still echoes in my heart. And that moment, when my son raised his hand, it did not start that morning. It started long before, in every small place where I chose peace instead of protest. Sometimes you don't lose love in one moment. You lose it in every moment where you stay silent, believing things will get better. I did not know that day would become the day everything changed. The day my son, the same boy whose hand once held my finger, would look at me, not with love, but with anger. But before I tell you that part, before we walk into the quiet storm that broke my heart, let me tell you how our home used to be, before silence lived there. Because memories are the only place where I still hold him the way I once did. Before things changed, our home used to feel warm. There was laughter once, soft footsteps, the sound of my boy running through the hallway calling, "Mom, Mom, look what I made!" Those memories, they live inside me like little lamps in a long dark tunnel. When I close my eyes, I can see his small face again, bright, excited, eager to show me his drawings, his school prizes, even his broken toys. He used to wipe my tears with his tiny palms. Can you believe that? He was so small, yet he cared so deeply. "Mom, don't cry. I will buy you a big house one day, and you will never be lonely again." I never wanted a big house. I only ever wanted a small place in his big world. Back then we had so little money, yet our hearts felt full. Every morning I woke up before sunrise to cook fresh food for him. He used to hug me from behind, his arms barely reaching around my waist. "Mom, you make the best breakfast in the world." Those words, they fed my soul more than any food could. And when he studied late at night, I would quietly place a glass of milk beside him. He would look up, tired but grateful, and say, "I don't know what I would do without you." What changed? When did that boy disappear? Sometimes I ask myself this question, not with bitterness, but with a soft ache. Do children outgrow their mothers? Or do their worlds simply become too crowded to fit us inside? When he graduated, I sat in the crowd, with my heart racing, tears filling my eyes. When they called his name, I clapped louder than anyone. My hands hurt, but my heart felt like it finally reached the sky. After the ceremony, he walked toward me, slowly. I thought he would hug me. I thought he would say, "Mom, we made it." But instead, he walked past me to greet his friends first. He hugged them. He laughed with them. And I stood a few steps away, holding the flowers I had bought for him with my last savings. He eventually took the flowers from me, but his eyes were somewhere else. That day, I learned something quietly. Not every distance comes from anger. Sometimes it comes from growing wings. And a mother must learn how to smile even when her heart whispers, "Don't forget me." Still, I never complained. Why would I? A mother's love is not a bargain. It is a lifetime pledge. Then came the day he told me he found someone special. His voice changed when he spoke about her, soft, full of wonder. I listened. I smiled. I prayed for him because happiness does not divide. It multiplies if hearts are open. When I first met her, she gave me a polite smile. She called me Mom in the sweetest tone. Her eyes looked warm. Or maybe I only saw warmth because I wanted to. I prepared everything for their wedding. I spent nights stitching gifts, cooking sweets, polishing the house, just like every mother does with love, not because she has to, but because her heart refuses to do anything less. On their wedding day, watching him take vows with her, I stood in the back and held my breath in my chest like a fragile glass. That moment was beautiful and painful. A mother celebrates her child's new life, yet simultaneously begins grieving the end of her own part in it. That night, he came to my room. He sat beside me and said quietly, "Mom, thank you for everything you have done. I hope I make you proud." I placed my hand on his cheek and whispered, "You already have." If I had known that moments like that would become rare, I would have held it longer. I would have memorized the warmth of his face in my palm. After marriage, the shift was small at first. Little things, tiny changes, moments that seemed harmless on the surface. His wife began changing the kitchen arrangements. That's okay, I told myself. A new woman needs her own touch in the house. She wanted more privacy. That's natural, I thought. Young couples need their space. She didn't like the old family recipes. That's fine, I told myself. Tastes evolve with generations. But soon, the home didn't feel like mine anymore. My routines felt like trespassing. My voice felt like an interruption. My presence felt like an inconvenience. Yet, I kept smiling because mothers don't walk away at the first sign of discomfort. We stay. We hold on. We hope. One evening, I made my son's childhood favorite, a simple rice and stew dish. I placed it on the table with care, waiting for him to taste the memory of our simpler days. He sat down, took a bite, and before he could speak, she said gently, "This is a little heavy for dinner. Maybe next time we should have something lighter." He put the spoon down. He didn't argue the dish. He didn't remember the evenings when that meal was all we had, and he used to lick the plate clean with joy. He simply followed her suggestion. My heart did not break. It simply felt quietly replaced. I cleared the table that night in silence. She did not notice. He did not notice, but God noticed. And mothers notice things even when they pretend not to. I still prayed for them every night. Because love, real love, does not stop when attention does. Some nights I heard them laugh in their room while I sat alone drinking tea. Their joy echoed through the walls, and I smiled through the loneliness. Because what kind of mother resents her child's laughter? Still, a soft ache sat in my chest like a quiet guest. I told myself, maybe tomorrow will feel different. But tomorrow brought a different test, one I never imagined in my
life. The next morning, I woke up early, as always. Old habits, they cling to us like shadows. I made breakfast, simple, warm, familiar. The smell of tea and toast filled the kitchen just like it did when he was a child. I set the table quietly, placing everything neatly, hoping this little routine could still hold us together, even if only for a moment. I heard their bedroom door open. Light steps. Soft laughter. I looked up smiling gently, ready to say good morning. They walked into the kitchen, but they did not sit. They did not pause. His wife said, without looking at the table, "We already ordered breakfast outside." He nodded. He didn't look at my preparations. He didn't see the way my hands trembled slightly as I held the teapot. They left together. The door closed. Silence wrapped around me like a cold blanket. I sat down at the table alone. 3 cups, 3 plates, and only 1 chair occupied. I lifted the cup of tea I made for him and held it for a moment. The steam rose, warm against my face. I whispered to myself, "It's okay. He's happy. That's what matters. That's all that has ever mattered." But inside, a voice trembled. Is happiness supposed to erase the people who built the path to it? I did not cry. Tears are heavy things, and sometimes a mother learns to carry sadness without letting it fall. Later that week, I heard them talking in their room. Their door was slightly open and their voices traveled softly down the hallway. She said, "I feel like we need more space. It's hard to start a life when someone else is always here." My breath stopped. Not fully, just a tiny pause, like a heart missing a beat.
He didn't answer at first, and then I heard him sigh. "She's my mother," he said quietly. "I know, and I love her, but this is our marriage, our home. We need privacy and freedom." I stepped back silently before they noticed I was near. I walked to my room on slow feet, like someone carrying invisible weight. That night, I did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling and reminded myself, a mother doesn't compete. A mother doesn't cling. A mother gives space, even if it means shrinking her own world. I prayed for peace, not for myself, but for them. I prayed that young love would not turn into resentment because of me. Days passed, soft and quiet. I kept a smile on my face. I moved gently through the house, like a visitor trying not to disturb the walls. Then came the moment everything changed. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was folding laundry in the living room, humming an old lullaby he loved as a child. He used to fall asleep on my lap when I sang it. I heard raised voices from the kitchen, not shouting, just tension. Words pressing against each other. "You always take her side," he replied. "I'm not taking sides. It feels like you are," she whispered, frustration trembling in her voice. I walked in, hoping to calm things, to ease whatever was troubling them. "Is everything all right?" I asked softly. She turned to me, trying to smile, but her frustration slipped through. "Actually, I need to talk to you." Her voice was polite, yet firm, like someone rehearsing words they didn't want to say. You treat him like he's still a little boy. I know you love him, but he's a husband now. He needs space, and I need space with him." I nodded. I understood her feelings. Love sometimes becomes a delicate balance, and mothers often forget where to stand once their children begin walking without them. But before I could speak, before I could say, I am trying. She added, "It's time for you to give us our life." He stood beside her, silent, eyes lowered. And in that silence, my heart cracked just a little. Still, I smiled gently. "I never meant to be in your way. I only wanted to help, not disturb." I reached out to touch my son's arm. Just a soft gesture, a mother's reassurance that she was not angry. But the moment my hand lifted, she stepped closer to him, as if to shield him. And in that strange, painful confusion, my son reacted without thinking. He pushed my hand away. Too fast, too harsh. A brief moment, but moments carve deep wounds. My hand trembled in the air. My breath caught. My heart, it did not shatter. It simply stopped feeling like a heart. He looked shocked at himself, as if he didn't recognize what he had done. But before he could speak, his wife whispered, "Did you just—" And then she whispered something I can never forget. She needs to learn boundaries. That word, boundaries, it echoed in my mind like a door closing slowly. I did not shout. I did not cry. I did not accuse. I simply lowered my hand, and with a soft voice, the kind mothers use when they soothe their babies, I said, "I am sorry. I didn't mean to interfere." And then I walked away. Not because I was weak, not because I was defeated, but because love does not fight to stay where it is no longer welcomed. In my room, I sat quietly, my hands folded in my lap, my eyes looking out the window. A bird flew by, free and gentle. Then a single tear slid down, slow, quiet, humble, not from anger, but from love that had nowhere left to go. Later, I heard him knock on my door, his voice shaky. "Mom, I didn't mean to." I opened the door and smiled. "Shh," I whispered. "It's all right. You didn't hurt me." But pain is not always physical. Sometimes it sits inside us like a silent guest. That night, I packed my small bag. Just clothes and memories. Before leaving, I placed a hand on his back when he wasn't looking, like I used to when he was little and frightened by thunder. Quiet love, invisible comfort. I whispered in my heart, "May life always be gentle to you, even when you are not gentle with me." And I walked out with dignity. No drama, no anger, no loud doors, just the soft closing of a chapter that once felt eternal. Sometimes leaving is not giving up. Sometimes leaving is loving so deeply that you step aside so someone else can breathe. I left my home, but I did not leave my love. A mother carries love the way the sea carries waves, endlessly, even when no one notices. And even now, as I tell you this story, my heart is not bitter. It is just human and quietly hopeful, because love, even when bruised, knows how to heal if we let it. I did not stand up. I did not yell. I just sat there, quietly, staring at my own hands, like they were strangers to me. My son and his wife walked to the doorway, whispering to each other. I could not hear the words, but I knew the tone, the kind where someone tries to fix things too late when the heart has already cracked. A minute later, my son came back inside. He didn't sit beside me. He just stood there, unsure, like a child who broke something he knew was precious. "Mama?" he whispered again, this time softer, almost breathless. I kept my eyes lowered, not because I was angry, but because I was trying to hold myself together. If I looked into his face, the tears would fall again, and I did not want him to see them. "Mama, please," he repeated. I shook my head gently. "I'm not angry," I said quietly. "But today, you showed me that I am no longer your home." He fell to his knees again. "You are my home," I smiled sadly. "No, beta, I was your home. Now I am just a guest who stayed too long." Silence spread between us, heavy, deep, painful. The kind of silence where hearts speak louder than mouths ever could. I stood slowly, my knees shaking, not from age, but from emotion. "I forgive you," I whispered. His head lifted fast, surprised. "Really?" "Yes," I nodded. "Because mothers forgive before they understand, and sometimes even when they never do." He broke again, tears falling. But I did not hold him this time. "I didn't have the strength anymore. I will go soon. Not today, but very soon. I will find a small place. I will not trouble you both." "No, Mama," he cried. "You're not going anywhere." A gentle smile, the kind that hurts more than crying. I said softly, "You can stop my body, but you cannot stop a decision made by a wounded heart." His wife stood behind him quietly, eyes lowered. I could see guilt in her face, real guilt. But guilt does not erase pain. Guilt cannot unbreak something once it's shattered. I felt tired. Not like someone who needed sleep, but like someone who had lived too many years in one single evening. I placed my hand on his head. "You will understand one day. Maybe when your child looks at you and you realize how much love lives inside a parent's heart." He held my wrist desperately. "Mama, don't leave me." "I am not leaving you. I am letting you grow. There is a difference." He didn't speak again. He just stayed there on the floor, crying like the little boy he once was. The boy who used to run to me for comfort, not cause me pain. And I stood there quietly watching my son fall apart over the piece of my heart he broke. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is loving someone enough to let the wound breathe, even if it never heals fully. That night, I sat in my room staring at the quiet walls. The house felt smaller now, or maybe my heart felt bigger, too big to fit in a space where I was no longer seen as a mother first. I lay down, slowly, carefully, like one lays down a memory they want to hold forever. Tears came again, gentle, silent, almost peaceful. "He is still my son," I whispered to the empty room. "He made a mistake, and mothers don't abandon their children for mistakes." But I also whispered the truth I could no longer ignore. Love gives a home, but sometimes love has to walk away to protect itself. I wasn't leaving out of anger. I was leaving out of love. The kind that refuses to become bitterness. The kind of love that says,
I forgive you, but I must heal too. I woke up early the next morning. The house was quiet, unusually quiet, like it was holding its breath, afraid to disturb the fragile peace resting on top of broken hearts. I walked to the kitchen, slowly, my hands brushing the wall like I needed something to steady me. Not because I was weak in my body, but because I was weak in my soul. The kettle whistled gently as I made tea. 1 cup for myself, and out of old habit, I made a second one for my son. I placed it where he usually sat. Then I remembered. I was not supposed to do this anymore. I froze, staring at the cup. Such a small thing, and yet it carried years of love. I lifted it again, planning to pour it out, but then his voice came from behind me, low, tired, heavy. Mama, leave it. I will drink it. I turned slowly. He looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were swollen. His shoulders slumped, like guilt had weight, and he was carrying it all alone. He sat down quietly. He didn't touch the cup right away. He just looked at me, carefully, almost scared. Mama, please don't go. I didn't answer. I sat too. Silence again. Not angry silence, but aching, gentle, quiet sadness. Last night, he whispered. I realized something. I looked at him. You were always the one holding this house together. I thought I was grown. But Mama, a man isn't grown if he forgets who made him. My eyes softened, not from pride, but from pain and love tangled together. I spoke slowly, like the words were fragile glass. Being a mother means loving even when you're hurting. He lowered his head. I don't deserve you. I didn't say he did. I didn't say he didn't. Some truths don't need words. Just then, the doorbell rang. We both turned. He went to answer it. And when he returned, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood someone I didn't expect to see. My daughter-in-law's mother. Her eyes were worried, her breath uneasy. She looked at me with a deep kind of shame I didn't understand yet. She stepped inside and folded her hands together. Sister, I came to apologize. My eyebrows lifted slightly. She took a breath, voice trembling. I raised her. Whatever she did to you, some part of that mistake belongs to me.
Not this honesty, not this humility. I taught her how to be a wife, she continued softly. But maybe I didn't teach her enough about being a daughter to someone else. My son stood frozen, eyes darting between us. I want to make this right, she said. She doesn't know I came here, but a home breaks when women stand against each other, and I cannot watch this family fall apart. I felt a sting behind my eyes. Not pain, something else. A reminder that life still had gentle people left in it. Before I could speak, someone else appeared behind her, my daughter-in-law. She wasn't angry. She wasn't proud. She looked small, scared, like the world she built was shaking.
She walked toward me slowly. "Mama," she whispered. For the first time, there was no edge in her voice, no ego, only regret and fear. "I am sorry." 3 soft words, so heavy, yet so light, the kind that could break you again or begin to heal something if you let them. My son looked at me, waiting, breath held tight in his chest. My daughter-in-law waited too. Her mother lowered her eyes, humbled. And suddenly I felt something warm rising inside me. Not anger, not victory, but grace. I closed my eyes. Sometimes life gives you 2 choices: stay broken to protect your pride, or forgive to protect your heart. I opened them again. My voice was soft, steady, full of quiet strength. "We cannot undo pain," I said, "but we can choose what grows from it." They all listened. "Let love grow," I whispered. And then, slowly, very slowly, I opened my arms. My daughter-in-law burst into tears and fell into them. My son placed his hand on my shoulder. Her mother cried softly behind us. We stood there, 4 people tied by one wound and held together by one simple truth. Family breaks. Family hurts. Family heals. Family begins again. I held her close, whispering, "I forgive you." Because forgiveness isn't a gift to the other person. It is a gift we give ourselves so our heart can breathe again. I did not leave that day, not because I was weak, but because love is stronger when it bends without breaking. The wound is still there. The memory still hurts. But we are learning again, slowly, gently, how to be a family. And sometimes that is enough. The days after that quiet reconciliation were not magical. They were small, almost imperceptible. But sometimes life's most important changes come not in fireworks, but in gentle, steady steps. I woke up the next morning and walked through the house with cautious hope. The air felt lighter. The tension that had clung to the walls for months was still there, yes, but it was no longer suffocating. It had loosened, like the first cracks of frost under the morning sun. My son was in the kitchen, quietly making coffee. He looked up and gave me a soft smile, the kind I remembered from years ago, before the world taught him to be careful with love. I returned the smile, careful not to rush the moment, not to expect too much too soon. Healing has its own rhythm, and it cannot be hurried. Trust does not return with words. It returns with actions, tiny, consistent, unassuming actions that say, "I see you. I value you. I am learning to protect what we almost lost." Every day after that, I noticed small changes. He asked my opinion again, gently, as if testing the waters. She started asking me to join them for tea, slowly letting go of the rigid boundaries she had once enforced. Even their laughter, once distant and private, began to mingle with mine. I learned something about aging in those days, that love, even when bruised, grows more patient, that time does not steal the heart. It teaches it to bend without breaking. I thought about the years I had given him, the sleepless nights, the prayers whispered in the dark, the sacrifices made quietly, and I realized my love had not disappeared. It had only transformed. One evening, my son came to my room. He stood there silently, his hands folded nervously. "Mama, I want to make it right," he said softly. I cannot undo what happened, but I can try every day to show you that I understand, that I still need you." I nodded. No words were necessary. I had waited for this moment for years, not for perfection, but for sincerity. In the following weeks, small rituals returned. We cooked together, shared stories at the table. Evenings were filled with quiet conversation, not loud declarations. Slowly, trust returned, not like a flood, but like a stream carving a path through hardened ground. I watched my son in those days, seeing not just the man he had become, but the little boy who had once held my hand so tightly he never wanted to let go. That boy was still there, beneath the layers of pride, protection, and life's lessons, and I loved him all the more for it. Sometimes, when I sit quietly in my room, I reflect on life and love, on the years that feel long yet slip by like sand through fingers, on the beauty of forgiveness, the patience of hearts, and the strength found in soft, steady choices. And I am at peace, not because life is perfect, but because love has taught me to let go of what I cannot control, to hold close what is essential, and to nurture it gently every single day. Family is not just built in moments of joy. It is rebuilt in moments of quiet courage, in apologies spoken softly, in hands extended without expectation, in hearts that choose to love even when it hurts. And so we move forward, slowly, carefully, step by step. A little trust returns with each smile, each shared cup of tea, each gentle word. And I realized finally that love does not fade. It changes. It grows. And when it grows with patience, it becomes unbreakable. I sit by the window sometimes and watch the sunset. I feel the warmth in my chest, a gentle reminder that even in the later chapters of life, hearts can heal, families can mend, and peace can arrive quietly, softly, like the end of a long, exhausting storm. And in those moments, I know this: I am still his mother. He is still my son. And we are learning, slowly, how to be whole again.